When I pushed open the heavy mahogany door of the CEO's office on the top floor of the Shun Group, the air was thick with a sickeningly sweet perfume. It was Joe Malone's Red Roses, Lin Man's favorite scent, and the invasive aroma I detested most. Scattered across the floor were several architectural design sketches that had once belonged to me. These blueprints, which had consumed 3 years of my life and even earned a Pritzker Prize nomination, were now being carelessly trampled under a pair of diamond-studded high heels. Oh dear, Brother Shun, did I accidentally ruin Sister Sue's things? Lin Man exclaimed, her body melting like boneless jelly as she snuggled into Shun Hanchuan's embrace. Shun Hanchuan was seated in the leather executive chair that symbolized his authority, his slender fingers holding a document. He lifted his gaze to look at me, his deep, cold eyes devoid of any trace of guilt. Instead, they held a chilling, ruthless intensity. It's just a few pieces of scrap paper. No big deal if they're ruined. Shun Hanchuan's voice was as cold as jade dropped into an ice cellar. Qingli, it's good that you're here. The moving company will arrive soon. Clear out all the odds and ends from your office. From now on, this space will be for Man. She just returned from abroad and needs a quiet place to work. I stood at the door, the car keys in my palm digging painfully into my skin. 3 years ago, when the Shun Group was mired in a debt crisis, it was I who brought the Su family's $5 billion in cash and the entire core R&D team as my dowry, marrying into the family to secure the position he now holds, from which he commands the world. This office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows facing the financial center of the entire city, was designed by my own hands. Every floor tile, every light fixture, bears the name of Su Qingli. Shun Hanchuan, say that again. I looked at him calmly, my tone devoid of any fluctuation. You want to give my office to your personal assistant. Monon is not just an ordinary assistant, she is the future art director of the Shun Group. Shun Hanchuan stood up and walked over to me, his imposing presence towering over me by a head. And you? What have you done for the company these past few years besides holding the title of vice president? Su Qingli, one must learn to assess the situation. This office is nothing more than a decoration for you, but for Monon, it's a source of inspiration. Apologize to her. The way you pushed the door just now scared her. Lin Monon hid behind him, flashing a provocative smile, though her voice dripped with feigned fragility. Sister Su, please don't blame Brother Shun. It's my fault. I shouldn't have come back. I'll leave right away. Stop. I let out a cold laugh and walked straight toward the desk. Shun Hanchuan frowned tightly. What do you think you're doing? If you're planning to make a scene, I suggest you save your energy. The security department is just downstairs. I ignored his threat and directly pressed the intercom on the desk. Have the legal department director bring the original asset isolation agreement, along with public relations manager Chen, to the top floor within 3 minutes. Also, call a few security guards to clear out any unauthorized personnel from the office. Su Qingli. Shun Hanchuan abruptly cut off the call, his face livid. Haven't you caused enough trouble over an office? You're going to alarm the entire company. Do you even have any sense of the bigger picture? Bigger picture. I turned to face him, looking directly at the face I had once been so infatuated with. Shun Hanchuan was indeed exceptionally handsome, with a cold and aloof demeanor, like a lotus blooming atop a snowy peak. Unfortunately, this lotus had been nurtured with the blood and sweat of my Su family. Shun Hanchuan, I gave you a chance. I pulled out a neatly folded copy of our marriage certificate from my bag. Lin Man leaned over to take a look and sneered. Sister Su, using a marriage certificate to pressure someone is just pointless. If Brother Shun doesn't have you in his heart, this piece of paper is nothing but scrap. You're right, it really is just scrap. In front of both of them, I tore the copy into pieces with a sharp rip and casually scattered them into the air. The white shreds fell like funeral paper money, drifting down onto Lin Man's expensive high heels. So I've decided that today, I'm not only taking back this office but also revoking all the Su family privileges within the Shun Group. As soon as the words fell, the office door was pushed open, and the legal department's director Ju, along with the public relations team, filed in one after another. Shun Hanchuan still hadn't grasped the severity of the situation, maintaining his usual cold arrogance. Director Ju, are you listening to her or to me? Don't forget who the CEO of this company is." Director Ju adjusted his glasses and handed over a red-covered document in a businesslike manner. "Mr. Shen, according to Article 17 of the Equity Circuit Breaker and Asset Pledge Agreement you signed with your wife before marriage, once an act that seriously damages the reputation and core asset usage rights of the investor occurs, the investor has the right to unilaterally initiate an equity circuit breaker." Shen Hanchuan's face instantly paled. "What did you say, equity circuit breaker?" Simply put, I walked to the window, looking at the endless stream of traffic outside. This building, this brand, even the chair you're sitting on, legally speaking, no longer belong to the Shen family from this moment on. They belong to me, Su Qingli. Personally, not only am I going to fire your mistress, but as the majority shareholder, I will also revoke all your fund transfer permissions. Su Qingli, you're insane. This is the foundation of the Shen family. Shen Hanchuan roared, veins bulging on his forehead. "No. This is a handout from my Su family," I replied coldly, glancing back and pointing at Lin Man. "Now, take your muse of inspiration and get out of my sight immediately. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind inviting the city's media to see how the woman in Mr. Shen's heart gets escorted out by security." Lin Man froze. She had thought this was a triumphant declaration of sovereignty, but she never expected to have kicked a thick steel plate instead. Shen Hanchuan stared at me intently, his eyes showing a trace of something called panic for the first time. He tried to reach for the phone on the table, but I was quicker and snatched it away before he could. "Mr. Shen, don't bother. Your personal account was temporarily frozen 3 minutes ago because you are suspected of misappropriating company funds to purchase private property for Miss Lin. We'll settle this account later." I casually tossed my phone into the trash can, producing a crisp, muffled thud. "Now, 3, 2, 1. The security guards pushed the door open. Lin Man screamed as she was restrained. And Shen Hanchuan, those cold eyes of his finally clouded with a devastating gloom. But I knew this was only the beginning. Home is gone. The company is gone. No, I will make even this name a disgrace. When Shen Hanchuan took Lin Man away, the gossip in the corridor had already spread like a plague. His straight back remained tense, trying to maintain his fragile, aloof pride. But he didn't know that the moment he walked out of this building, the gilded armor bestowed by the Su family's wealth had already begun to peel away. I didn't linger in the office and drove straight back to the Su family's old mansion. The Su family's old mansion is located on Wutong Avenue, a quiet retreat in the bustling city center. The black wrought iron gate slowly opened, with ancient pines and cypresses lining both sides, exuding the heritage of a century-old family. This is the true center of power, and Shen Hanchuan had always believed that as long as he secured his position as CEO, he could stand on equal footing with the Su family. Pushing open the heavy rosewood door of the study, I found Grandpa sitting in a rattan chair with his eyes closed, resting. On the table lay a thick stack of documents, the financial reports of the Shen Group from the past few years, along with the technology patent reclamation letter I had just asked the lawyer to expedite. "Qingli, have you made up your mind?" Grandpa opened his eyes, his gaze sharp and penetrating. "Grandpa, I've been feeding a thankless wolf for 3 years, and today I want to personally pull out its teeth." I sat across from Grandpa, my voice so calm it was almost cruel. Shen Hanchuan brought Lin Man into my office and even wanted me to apologize to her. He's forgotten that the core chip technology the Shen Group is currently using, all the patents are held by the Su family laboratory. Grandpa let out a cold laugh, his thin, bony fingers tapping lightly on the table. "When he begged to marry you back then, he knelt in the snow and swore he'd protect you for a lifetime. Now that his wings have hardened, he dares to use the Su family's assets to please his little lover." Lawyer Ju, proceed as planned. Mr. Ju, who had been standing in the shadows all along, handed me a pen. "President Su, as soon as you sign this, the Aurora series products that Shen Group is currently promoting will be forced to halt production across the entire line within 24 hours due to the loss of patent authorization. Additionally, regarding the 300 million yuan in original shares that the Su family injected into Shen Group, since Shun Hanchuan has violated the compensation clause in the loyalty agreement, we will initiate the forced recovery process. Without hesitation, I put pen to paper, each stroke feeling like a sharp blade cutting through Shun Hanchuan's throat. Besides that, I closed the file and looked up at Mr. Ju. The villa in Cloud Peak Garden where Shun Hanchuan currently lives, the property deed is under my name. Right, yes, that was a dowry from old Mr. Su to you. Mr. Shun only has the right to reside there. Very well. Notify the moving company that by tomorrow morning, I want to see every single item belonging to the Su family cleared out. As for what doesn't belong to the Su family, I paused, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my lips. Throw it in the trash or give it to the homeless, handle it however you see fit. Just then, my phone began vibrating frantically. It was Shun Hanchuan. I pressed the speakerphone button. Su Qingli, have you had enough of this nonsense yet? Shun Hanchuan's voice echoed sharply in the empty study, tinged with breathless frustration. The finance department says all my personal and business cards have been frozen. Lin Man is at the hospital for a checkup and can't even pay the registration fee. Isn't this kind of tactic of yours just too low? Despicable. I let out a light laugh, my fingertips tracing the cold surface of the desk. Mr. Shun, you've been using my money, living in my house, taking my family's patents to support a woman on the outside, and even trying to take over my office. Back then, why didn't you think that was despicable? Lin Man can't even afford the registration fee. Good, let her wake up and see what Shun Hanchuan has left without the support of the Su family. You, Shun Hanchuan, this is just the beginning. Do you still think you're the all-powerful Mr. Shun? From now on, you're just a caretaker at Shun Group. Soon, you'll receive a court summons and a patent injunction. Enjoy your last 24 hours as CEO. I hung up the phone directly and promptly added his number to the blacklist. Outside the study, the butler hurried in with a strange expression on his face. Mr. Shun's mother has arrived and is making a scene in the living room, demanding to see you. She says you are not virtuous, daring to cut off your son's allowance. I raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Shun, that old lady who prides herself on being noble but actually relies entirely on the Su family's support to buy her Hermes bags. Half of Shun Hanchuan's innate arrogance comes from her influence. Let her in, I said, smoothing the hem of my cheongsam, my eyes turning cold. Since we're cleaning house, we might as well start with these bloodsuckers. When Mrs. Shun stormed into the study, she was dripping with jewels, her well-maintained face filled with indignation. Su Qingli, have you gone mad? Hanchuan is your husband. How dare you freeze his cards? Do you have any idea how much he'll be humiliated in front of his clients today? And that Lin Man, she's just a pitiful child. As the main wife, don't you have even a shred of tolerance for others? I stood up and approached her step by step. Shun's mother was frightened by the coldness in my eyes and took a step back. What do you want to do? I'm your mother-in-law. From this moment on, you are not. I looked coldly at the $1,000,000 pearl necklace around her neck. This necklace was bought for you last year at Sotheby's auction house. Since you think I am not virtuous, then you have no right to wear something given by such an unvirtuous person. I suddenly reached out and, before the necklace could fall, I grabbed her wrist first. Attorney Ju, take note. All the jewelry on MS Shun and the Ferrari under her name are gifts from the Su family, given the recipient's verbal insults and malicious appropriation against the donor. I intend to legally revoke these gifts. Su Qingli, how dare you strip me of my clothes? Mrs. Shun screamed, her voice shattering the tranquility of the Su family's ancestral home. I have no interest in looking at your sagging skin. I released my grip, disgusted, and took out a handkerchief to wipe my fingertips. Since Shun Hanchuan loves you so much, and loves Lin Man so much, then you can all move in together. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I also plan to reclaim the Shun family's ancestral home. Tomorrow, your entire family can go live on the streets. Mrs. Shun collapsed to the floor, her face deathly pale. Outside the window, thunder rumbled faintly. A long-planned storm was finally about to break. Shun Hanchuan, do you think this is over? No, when the identity, money, and status you take pride in crumble one after another, You will understand what true despair means. While Shun's mother was being dragged out by security after throwing a tantrum at the old mansion, I was sitting in front of the mirror, having my makeup for tonight's charity auction done by a top stylist. Shun Hanchuan probably thought that by freezing his cards and stripping him of his power, I would hide at home, waiting for him to return and beg for mercy. He doesn't know me well enough. The daughter of the Su family never cries over ruins, she only cuts ribbons on them. Miss Su, this tears of the deep-sea blue diamond set, only you in the entire city can truly carry it off, the stylist marveled as she fastened the 8-figure necklace around my collarbone. I looked at myself in the mirror, my gaze as sharp and cold as a blade. Tonight, Shun Hanchuan would be there too, because Lin Man had her heart set on that set of ruby jewelry called City's Enchantment. It was her ticket to establish herself in the socialite circle after returning to the country. When I stepped into the banquet hall on the top floor of the Peninsula Hotel, the air seemed to freeze for a few seconds. Shun Hanchuan was standing in the center of the hall with Lin Man. He had changed into a custom-tailored suit, still carrying that aloof, untouchable air, and Lin Man, wearing a pure white strapless gown, was nestled beside him like a delicate white lotus. The surrounding whispers crept into my ears. Didn't Mr. Shun say the Su family withdrew their investment? Why does he seem so confident? I heard he secured new venture capital and brought his little lover here to show off. Shun Hanchuan saw me, his dark eyes narrowing slightly. He strode toward me, his voice low and threatening. Su Qingli, don't make a scene at an occasion like this. I can overlook the card incident, as long as you publicly apologize to Man Man now and admit it was a misunderstanding. I'll compensate you with double the patent fees from Shun Corporation. Double. I swirled the champagne in my glass and chuckled softly. Shun Hanchuan, have you forgotten that Shun Corporation's accounts are so tight that even next month's payroll has to rely on loans? Where do you get the confidence to talk to me about double? Brother Shun, Sister Su might still be upset, Lin Man interjected softly, though her eyes were fixed on the blue diamond around my neck, unable to hide her jealousy. Actually, Brother Shun said he's already set aside funds for that Qing Cheng gemstone set. Please don't make things difficult for him. I was about to speak when a playful laugh came from behind me. Well, President Shun, your own company is on the verge of shutting down, yet you still have the leisure to bid on rubies here. Where does this confidence come from? Borrowing from loan sharks, or did you sell your underwear for it? Hu Jingzi, dressed in a deep purple suit, slowly walked over with a wineglass in hand. His devilishly handsome face was clearly marked with the words "Here for the show." The Hua and Shun families were long-standing rivals, and Hu Jingzi was the opponent Shun Hanchuan feared most in the business world. Shun Hanchuan's expression darkened. Young Master Hua, this is a private matter of the Shun family. There's no need for you to concern yourself. A private matter? I see it as a business matter. Hu Jingzi glanced at me sideways, a hint of admiration in his eyes, before turning his gaze back to Shun Hanchuan. President Shun, you may not know this yet, but the 5 billion yuan contract you just signed with Ruixin Venture Capital has been urgently suspended, because, due to your alleged infringement of the Su family's patents, your credit rating has been downgraded to D. Shun Hanchuan clenched his fists tightly. Impossible. The contract has already been signed. Even if you sign, you can still break the contract as long as you can afford the penalty for breach. I leaned closer to him, speaking in a voice only the three of us could hear. Shun Hanchuan, I forgot to tell you, the largest shareholder of Ruixin Venture Capital is my grandfather's closest friend. Did you think that without the Su family, there would still be anyone in this world willing to pull up an ungrateful beast like you? Shun Hanchuan's body trembled slightly, and a crack finally appeared in his cold, detached expression. At that moment, the auctioneer's voice rang out. The next item up for auction is the Qing Cheng series, which Miss Lin Man has long admired. The starting bid is 8 million. Lin Man's eyes lit up, and she tugged sweetly at Shun Hanchuan's sleeve. Brother Shun. Hanchuan gritted his teeth, as if to make one last stand in front of Hu Jingzi and me, and raised his paddle. 10 million. The room erupted in a commotion. 12 million. I calmly raised my paddle, not even glancing at him. 15 million. Shen Hanchuan's voice carried a hint of reckless madness. He was probably gambling, betting that there was still money left in his secret account, which I hadn't completely locked down yet. 20 million. I raised the bid once more. 25 million. Sweat beaded on Shen Hanchuan's forehead, while Lin Man beside him flushed with excitement. I set down the bidding paddle and smiled. Mr. Shen is truly generous. To win a smile from a beauty, you're willing to use the last of Shen Corporation's reserve funds. I turned my head and looked toward the financial supervisor beside the auction podium. However, I'd like to ask if the bidder's account is currently under investigation by the police and auditors for suspected financial fraud and illegal embezzlement of public funds. Is his bidding qualification still valid? The entire hall erupted in an uproar. Two uniformed auditors entered through a side door and walked directly to Shen Hanchuan. Mr. Shen, we apologize, but we have received a report alleging that you misappropriated Shen Group funds to purchase private assets for Miss Lin Man. According to the law, all payment terminals under your name were forcibly locked 5 minutes ago. Your earlier bid is suspected of malicious bidding. Shen Hanchuan's face instantly turned from pale to a deathly gray. No, this can't be. This is just an ordinary property dispute. Lin Man screamed. An ordinary property dispute. I pulled out a report and flung it onto Shen Hanchuan's chest. Shen Hanchuan, using company Randi funds to buy a villa for Lin Man is embezzlement. Using my dowry to fill the holes in the Shen family's finances is illegal fundraising. Now, swipe the card, Mr. Shen. If you can't cover these 25 million, tonight you won't just become the laughingstock of the entire city, you'll also be taken away by the police for questioning. Shen Hanchuan froze in place, his hand holding the black gold card trembling slightly. The card reader beeped repeatedly, each crisp rejection sounding like a slap across his cold, arrogant face. Can't get it to go through, Hu Jingzi sneered. Mr. Shen, if you don't have the money, don't play so big. Since you can't afford it, Miss Su will gladly accept this set of rubies. No need, young Master Hua. I don't want something tainted with bad luck. I turned gracefully to the auctioneer. I'll buy it at the starting price of 8 million, and then, I'll smash it in front of everyone. You're insane, Lin Man screamed. I'm not insane. I looked at her coldly, then turned my gaze to Shen Hanchuan. I just wanted to tell Mr. Shen that what I can give you, I can also personally destroy, including your reputation and your beloved. That night, Shen Hanchuan was taken away by auditors for questioning amid the mockery and pointing fingers of the crowd. As for Lin Man, having lost Shen Hanchuan as her personal ATM, even the expensive high heels on her feet were confiscated on the spot by the debt-collecting PR company. She had no choice but to flee barefoot through the hotel's back door in utter disgrace. Standing on the high platform, I looked down at the ruins below. The suffocating resentment that had been buried deep in my heart for 3 years finally began to dissipate, at least by half. Shen Hanchuan, this is just the beginning. Next, I'm going to take you back home to see how your so-called safe haven crumbles. At 3 in the morning, the Shen family's old mansion, which should have been enveloped in complete silence, was now brightly lit. I sat on the expensive Italian imported leather sofa in the living room, swirling a glass of whiskey on the rocks in my hand. Shen Hanchuan had just been bailed out from the audit bureau and pushed the door open in a disheveled state, followed by Lin Man, who was crying pitifully and barefoot. Su Qingli, how long are you going to keep this up? Shen Hanchuan stormed over to me, his usually immaculately styled hair now slightly disheveled, his cool voice turning hoarse with anger. You've paralyzed the company, humiliated me at the auction, and now you're waiting here at home like a hunter. I didn't speak, just clapped my hands toward the window. Several massive yellow cranes and a full team of uniformed movers filed in one by one, their heavy footsteps instantly shattering the silence of the old house. Miss Su, according to the contract, aside from the load-bearing walls, all movable and immovable attachments belonging to you inside will be cleared out within 2 hours, the foreman said, bowing respectfully to me. Shen Hanchuan froze, then let out a ridiculous, cold laugh. Su Qingli, have you lost your mind? This is the Shen family home, my family's ancestral house. What are you letting these people in here to dismantle? the Shun family. I set down my wine glass, producing a crisp clinking sound. Shun Hanchuan, have you forgotten? 3 years ago, when the Shun Group went bankrupt and underwent restructuring, this old mansion was mortgaged to the bank. It was I, Su Qingli, who used my own private assets to redeem the deed. The property certificate bears my name. Every brick of this house belongs to the Su family. Lin Man hid behind Shun Hanchuan, raising her voice sharply. Even if the house is yours, the things inside belong to Brother Shun. What right do you have to touch them? Brother Shun's. I stood up, pointing at the coat Shun Hanchuan had draped over Lin Man. Even this coat was bought with the household allowance I gave him. Lawyer Ju, tell them. Lawyer Ju stepped out from the shadows, holding a thick list of notarized assets. Mr. Shun, according to the marriage law and the supplementary property separation agreement you signed, all furniture, appliances, artworks, and main decorative materials in the Shun family mansion valued at over 5,000 yuan were purchased with Miss Su's personal funds. Given your current breach of contract, Miss Su has the right to reclaim the aforementioned items. Tear it down. I coldly spat out a single word. The sounds of electric drills and hammering instantly erupted in the living room. Shun Hanchuan watched helplessly as his most beloved, $1 million Steinway piano was roughly packed up by the workers, as the authentic masterpieces he was so proud of, hanging on the wall, were directly taken down. Even the massive wine cabinet he used to show off was dismantled piece by piece. Stop, all of you, stop. Shun Hanchuan tried to rush forward to stop them but was firmly held back by 2 burly security guards. Mr. Shun, there's no need to get so worked up. I walked slowly toward him, looking into his bloodshot eyes. Didn't you enjoy giving my office to Lin Man? Didn't you think all my things were worthless scraps? Since you're so high-minded, you surely don't care for these filthy, money-stained items, right? Lin Man stared at the now empty, suddenly dilapidated living room, trembling all over. Brother Shun, we should go upstairs to the bedroom. They can't possibly take the bed too, can they? Miss Lin, you've just reminded me. I offered a gentle smile. The mattress and bed frame upstairs, even the plush carpet you're standing on right now, are all on my moving list. Oh, and by the way, the water, electricity, and gas for this house, I cancelled them all 3 minutes ago. As soon as the words left my mouth, the last few crystal chandeliers in the living room flickered twice and went completely dark. Darkness instantly engulfed the entire mansion, with only the faint glow from the streetlights outside casting a shadow on Shun Hanchuan's face, twisted by extreme humiliation. Su Qingli, must you go this far? Shun Hanchuan gritted his teeth, each word seeming to be squeezed out from between them. I just wanted to give Man a proper status. I never truly intended to abandon you. As long as you stop now, I promise I'll treat you well from now on. The position of Mrs. Shun will still be yours. The position of Mrs. Shun. I couldn't help but laugh, as if I had heard the biggest joke in the world. Shun Hanchuan, you still don't understand. It's not that the Shun family needs a daughter-in-law, it's that I, Su Qingli, wanted to play a raising game. Unfortunately, I raised it wrong, and since it's gone wrong, I'll personally put an end to it. I pulled a document from my bag and threw it at his chest. This is the lease termination agreement. I've already rented this house to a demolition company as a temporary warehouse. Now, please leave my private property immediately. Both of you. Where do you expect us to go now? Shun Hanchuan roared. That's your problem. You can take her to stay in a 5 yuan a night guest house, or you can sleep under the overpass. After all, you have true love between you, don't you? True love shouldn't be afraid of the biting cold wind. The workers moved extremely fast. In less than 2 hours, the once extravagantly luxurious mansion was reduced to nothing but empty, bare walls. Shun Hanchuan had originally wanted to preserve a shred of dignity, but when he saw Lin Man secretly contacting her previous backup sugar daddies because she couldn't bear the cold and darkness, his last bit of aloof persona completely crumbled. He slumped onto the empty floor, surrounded by the leftover trash from the move. I walked toward the Maybach parked at the entrance. Before closing the car door, I glanced back at the cage that was once filled with my humble affection. Shun Hanchuan, Don't rush into despair. At tomorrow morning's shareholders meeting, I have an even bigger gift for you. Remember to dress appropriately, even if it's the last decent suit you can wear." The car started. Leaving the two figures huddled in the ruins behind, I watched the darkness in the rearview mirror, and the last trace of pity in my heart for the wife was completely extinguished. From this moment on, I am Shun Hanchuan's creditor, his nightmare, and the executioner who personally buries his ambitions. Shun Group Building. The morning sunlight today was particularly harsh, yet it couldn't penetrate the oppressive and eerie atmosphere that filled the entire building. All the employees were whispering to each other, their eyes darting between the empty doorway of the CEO's office and the elevator lobby. When I stepped into the conference room, Shun Hanchuan was already seated. At the far end of the long table, he had changed into a dark grey suit, the only one that hadn't been taken away by the moving crew. Despite his efforts to maintain his usual cold and dignified demeanor, the heavy dark circles under his eyes and his slightly stiff fingers betrayed his anxiety. Lin Man actually came along as well. She sat in the back row of the gallery, her face pale, trying to hide the disheveled state from last night's cowering in the ruins with heavy makeup. "Su Qingli, you're late." Shun Hanchuan lifted his eyelids, his tone stiff, trying to seize the initiative. "As a shareholder, your recent personal behavior has severely disrupted the company's normal operations. At today's board meeting, I will propose to remove you from your position as vice president and revoke your authority to intervene in the finance department." Several old directors who had been privately bribed by Shun Hanchuan exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. "President Su, personal matters should not be brought into business. Your recent behavior has been truly unacceptable." "Yes, Shun Group's stock price has already dropped 3 percentage points due to your negative news. You need to give an explanation." I pulled out the chair at the head of the table but didn't sit down. Instead, I leaned on the table with one hand, looking at the room full of people, each with their own hidden agenda. With a faint, mocking smile, "Remove me," I chuckled softly, turning to look at Shun Hanchuan. "Mr. Shun, did you spend a night in that unfinished apartment without water or electricity and freeze your brain along the way? What makes you think you have the right to remove me?" Shun Hanchuan abruptly stood up and slammed a pre-prepared proposal onto the table. "Because I am the CEO of Shun Group. Because I hold 30% of the decision-making power, Su Qingli. You're just riding on the Su family's influence to hold a nominal position in the company. In terms of contribution and seniority, you have no right to speak here. What a CEO, Shun. What a decision-making power." I leisurely pulled out a gilded document from my bag and tossed it onto the center of the conference table. "Since CEO Shun wants to talk about identity, let's discuss it thoroughly." The lawyer Jew behind me stepped forward, his voice booming like a bell. "Board members, on behalf of my client, MS. Su Qingli, I hereby announce, MS. Su is not only the absolute controlling shareholder of Shun Group with a 51% stake, but she also holds another identity, the chief partner of the world's largest asset management institution, Shina Group." The entire conference room instantly fell into a deathly silence. Shun Hanchuan's body swayed violently. He stared fixedly at the document bearing the wax seal of Shina Group, his voice trembling. "No, impossible. Shina Group is Shun Group's largest overseas investor. You're a partner. How is that possible? Why is it impossible?" I slowly sat down, elegantly crossing my legs. "Do you think Shina Group provided 3 consecutive rounds of life-saving funds to the Shun family back then for no reason? Do you think those cutting-edge international chip models just happened to flow into the Shun family's R&D department for no reason?" Shun Hanchuan, it wasn't because of your extraordinary talent, nor was it because the Shun family had limitless potential. It was because I was covering for you. The hopeless case. I glanced at Lin Man, who was already terrified in the back row, then turned my gaze back with a cold smile. "Yet you used my resources to support a useless person who only knows how to cry. You even wanted to give my hard work to her as a break room. Qingli, Shun Hanchuan tried to step forward and grab my hand, but I swiftly pressed a pen against his palm. "Don't touch me, it's filthy." I withdrew my hand and glanced around at the old directors who had been clamoring just moments before. Now, they were all bowing their heads, not even daring to breathe loudly. Now, I formally notify everyone, in light of Mr. Shin Han-chuan's serious misconduct during his tenure, including embezzlement of company funds, improper benefit transfers, and personal conduct issues that have caused devastating damage to the company's reputation, I took another document from lawyer Ju and threw it directly in Shin Han-chuan's face. I hereby, in my dual capacity as the controlling shareholder and representative of the capital side, officially remove Shin Han-chuan from his position as CEO of Shin Group. Furthermore, from this moment on, Shin Group will be renamed Su Technology. You can't do this. The Shin name was left behind by my grandfather, Shin Han-chuan screamed hysterically. That was left by your grandfather. But you've squandered it all now. I stood up, looking down at him from above. Shin Han-chuan, you're fired, not just from the company. Starting today, I will join forces with Shengna Group to issue an industry-wide notice. Any company that engages in business with you will be added to our blacklist. Mr. Shin, you may pack your things and leave now. Lawyer Ju made a please gesture. As two tall, burly security guards had already positioned themselves behind Shin Han-chuan. Su Qingli, what you're doing is illegal. I'm going to sue you. Lin Man finally couldn't hold back and jumped out. I couldn't even be bothered to look at her. Sue me, Miss Lin. With that energy, you'd better first think about how to face the lawsuit after the properties under your name, bought with Shin Group's dirty money, are reclaimed. Oh, and by the way, Shengna Group's legal team is famously relentless in achieving their goals. Shin Han-chuan, like a puppet that had lost its soul, was unceremoniously escorted out of the conference room by the security guards. His once aloof and unapproachable demeanor now seemed utterly ridiculous in the face of his lost power. As he reached the door, he turned back to look at me, his eyes filled with pleading and disbelief. I simply raised my coffee cup toward him. It was Blue Mountain, his favorite in the past. Now, it served as my offering to celebrate his departure. Mr. Shin, remember to leave your employee badge behind. From now on, not even a single piece of paper belonging to you will remain here. Outside the Shin Group building, the cool breeze of early autumn carried a biting chill. At the moment Shin Han-chuan and Lin Man were shoved out the main gate, countless flashbulbs that had been lying in wait instantly erupted. Shin Han-chuan instinctively tried to raise his hand to shield himself, only to realize that even the gold-rimmed non-prescription glasses he always wore to project an elite image had fallen off in the commotion and been crushed under someone's leather shoe. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the spectacle below, but I knew it wasn't over yet. A woman like Lin Man, as long as there was a sliver of hope, would cling to Shin Han-chuan like a stubborn vine, and what I had to do was strangle even that so-called true love of hers. An hour later, I appeared at the most discreet French restaurant in the city center, Moonlight Pavilion. This had once been the place where Shin Han-chuan and Lin Man carried on their affair. Today, I had reserved the entire restaurant. Lin Man arrived punctually at her seat. She had clearly taken great care to touch up her makeup, and though the hem of her dress was still slightly wrinkled, her eyes held a desperate, frantic glint. Su Qingli, you may have won fame and fortune, but you will never win people's hearts. As soon as Lin Man sat down, she couldn't wait to speak, her voice sharp. Han-chuan has lost everything now, but I will stay by his side. A cold-blooded business monster like you could never understand what love is. I leisurely cut into the Wellington steak on my plate, the crimson juices flowing out, reminiscent of some kind of ritual. Love. I set down my knife and fork, elegantly wiping the corner of my mouth. Miss Lin, the love you speak of, is it built on a monthly allowance of 500,000, 3 high-end apartments in the CBD, and the title of artistic director that Shin Han-chuan promised you? Now that all of that is gone, how long can your love last? Don't you dare try to drive a wedge between us. Lin Man straightened her posture, a hint of strange pride in her tone. I'm carrying Han-chuan's child. With this alone, I will always have a place in the Shin family, and he will never abandon me. I looked at her face, brimming with ambition, and suddenly felt a pang of pity. Miss Lin, in this circle, the most taboo thing is telling a lie that can be easily exposed. I took a stack of photos and a medical report from the Hermes handbag beside me and gently pushed them toward her. This is Shen Hanchuan's medical examination report from a private hospital 3 years ago. Due to an accident many years ago, he is permanently infertile. Even he himself doesn't know about this, only I. As his wife who handled his medical records, am aware. Lin Man's face instantly turned even paler than the white porcelain plate on the table. Impossible, that doctor said. That doctor, you paid him 500,000 to cooperate, didn't you? I coldly interrupted her, then produced a second piece of evidence, a stack of high-definition, secretly taken photos. The man in them was not Shen Hanchuan, but several wealthy businessmen old enough to be Lin Man's father, Lin Man. During those years you spent abroad, you weren't some socialite returning home, you were a public relations figure at multiple high-end clubs. Here are your transfer records from the past 3 years, along with surveillance screenshots of you entering and leaving hotels with these several sponsors. If the child in your belly is real, I think those old men would be more interested than Shen Hanchuan in finding out who the real father is. No, this isn't true, you fabricated the evidence. Lin Man went wild, trying to tear up the photos. Go ahead and tear them, I have plenty of backups here. I pointed to the large, semi-transparent screen in the corner of the restaurant. Actually, when I invited you to dinner tonight, I also invited another audience member. Behind the screen, Shen Hanchuan's rigid figure slowly emerged. His usually cold and aloof face was now ashen and contorted, even carrying a kind of eerie stillness. He stared fixedly at Lin Man, each page of evidence feeling like a resounding slap across his self-proclaimed love above all pride. Man, is this what you meant by rejecting all your suitors for me? Shen Hanchuan's voice was hoarse, like a broken bellows being pulled. Hanchuan, let me explain. It was her, Su Qingli, who framed me. Lin Man rushed over, trying to grab his sleeve. Shen Hanchuan abruptly shoved her away. The force was so strong that Lin Man slammed heavily into the corner of the dining table, splashing expensive red wine all over herself, leaving her in a wretched state. Su Qingli was right. I actually lost the Su family, the Shen group, and all my dignity for a woman as rotten to the core as you. Shen Hanchuan suddenly burst into laughter, the sound sharp and bitter. I thought you were the moonlight in my dark life, but you're nothing more than a pile of foul mud. Shen Hanchuan, stop acting out this drama of betrayed affection. I stood up, looking down at the pair of dogs biting each other. You two are essentially the same kind of people. One is selfish and hypocritical, relying on a woman's hard-earned money to maintain their pride. The other is greedy and shameless, weaving dreams of climbing the social ladder with their body and lies. You two are a perfect match. Lin Man slumped on the floor, staring into Shen Hanchuan's eyes filled with disgust and hatred, finally realizing that her last lifeline had snapped. Su Qingli, why are you doing this to me? You already have everything. Why must you drive me to the brink? Lin Man cried out. Because I have a cleanliness obsession, I said, picking up my bag. I paused briefly as I walked past Shen Hanchuan, not looking at him, my tone as calm as still water. Shen Hanchuan, tomorrow at 10 in the morning, at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, if you dare to be late. I'll make sure these photos of Lin Man appear in the inbox of every senior employee at Shen Corporation. I imagine you wouldn't want your last shred of dignity to become a laughingstock across the entire industry. Would you? Shen Hanchuan said nothing, he just stared blankly at the mess on the table. I walked out of the restaurant, the evening breeze lifting the hem of my trench coat. Behind me, the restaurant erupted with the sounds of fierce arguments and shattering dishes. That couple, who once thought they could trample over me, were finally about to enter their own hellish mode, fueled by accusations and hatred toward each other. But this was merely the collapse of personal morality. Shen Hanchuan. The true social destruction had only just begun. On the steps outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, Shen Hanchuan was late. When he appeared with disheveled hair, wearing that wrinkled gray suit, I was sitting in the car, handling the first quarter consolidated financial report for Su's Technology. The divorce certificate was obtained without a hitch. The moment we stepped out the door, Shen Hanchuan tried to call out to me, his eyes holding a cheap sense of regret. Qingli, since we're already even, can you stop now? If Shen Corporation's stock price continues to fall, Those thousands of employees will lose their jobs. You don't want to see that happen, do you? He was still trying to use the so-called big picture to guilt-trip me. I rolled down the car window, but before I could speak, a sudden torrential downpour poured from the sky without warning. Shin Han-chwon, you destroyed those employees' livelihoods the moment you messed up the company's accounts. As for stopping, I glanced at the gloomy sky outside the window, a faint smile curling at the corner of my lips. The show has just reached its climax. Half an hour later, an account claiming to be a righteous insider of Shun Corporation posted a video on social media. In the video, it was none other than Shin Han-chwon, in the CEO's office, personally trampling on 3 years of my design efforts for Lin Man. Not only that, but there was also solid evidence of Shin Han-chwon illegally misappropriating RAND-D funds to pay for Lin Man's overseas luxury bills. Public opinion exploded instantly. Shin Han-chwon had originally intended to use the persona of a down-and-out CEO driven to the brink by his cold-blooded ex-wife to gain sympathy, trying to pressure the Su family through public opinion. He even hired trolls to accuse me of illegally possessing the Shin family's assets. But this video and the chain of evidence dealt him a fatal blow. Oh my God, is this the legendary aloof CEO, more like a cold-blooded vampire? Using your wife's money to support a mistress, and even giving away your wife's office. This kind of man should just be buried. An employee from Shun Corporation has something to say. When President Su was in charge, the benefits were top-notch. As soon as President Shun took over, he started an office romance. Disgusting. I drove to a deserted dock on the outskirts of the city. This was the secret location where Shin Han-chwon had once attempted to transfer the company's last batch of core raw materials. The rain grew heavier, and the dock light swayed unsteadily in the downpour. Holding a black umbrella, I watched as Shin Han-chwon, looking disheveled, tried to load several crates of expensive chips labeled Su Technology onto a dilapidated boat with a few others. Shin Han-chwon, you are digging your own grave. My cold voice cut through the curtain of rain. Shin Han-chwon whipped his head around. Rainwater streamed down his face and into his collar. His gold-rimmed glasses were long gone, and his eyes were filled with the desperation of a cornered man. Su Qingli, must you drive me to the brink? These chips are my last hope. If I can just take them abroad, I can make a comeback. I took 2 steps closer. Behind me stood a team of professional bodyguards, ready for action, along with several media reporters shouldering cameras. What you stole isn't just chips, it's the legally protected commercial secrets of Su Technology. Within 2 hours of the divorce agreement taking effect, you broke into the warehouse and stole assets worth over $1 billion. Shin Han-chwon, this isn't capital, it's a prison sentence notice. Are you following me? Shin Han-chwon stared in horror at the reporters, the sound of camera shutters rising and falling in the darkness, each flash of light seeming to pronounce his death sentence. Not following, it's the long arm of the law catching up. I took out a notarized asset preservation order. You thought you avoided the security at the main entrance, but you didn't know that every sensor along the entire supply chain was under my phone's surveillance. The whole process of you personally moving each box of chips was already live-streamed across the internet. At that moment, Lin Man also rushed out of a taxi not far away. She probably intended to run away with Shin Han-chwon but never expected to run into such a scene. Brother Shin, hurry up and go. The police are almost here, Lin Man screamed, only to be immediately restrained with her arms pinned behind her back by a female police officer. Miss Lin Man, Mr. Shin Han-chwon is suspected of embezzlement and commercial fraud. As a co-beneficiary and intermediary in the asset transfer, please come with us as well. Shin Han-chwon looked at the forest of cameras surrounding him and the flashing red and blue police lights, his legs giving way as he collapsed to his knees in the muddy, waterlogged ground. His once proud, seemingly unassailable backbone had completely crumbled at this moment. Like a stray dog, he trembled in the pouring rain and the scorn of public opinion. Qingli, save me. For the sake of our 3 years as husband and wife, I stood under the umbrella, the tips of my shoes not a speck of mud or water. I looked down at him, my eyes holding no hatred, only the relief that comes from seeing trash for what it is. Affection. Shin Han-chwon, When you brought Lin Man into my office for those 30 minutes, you fed that affection to the dogs. Now, to me, you are nothing but a criminal who disrupted business order and must be dealt with according to the law." I turned and walked toward the car, not looking back once at the man screaming in despair amid the pouring rain. The tide of public opinion would drown him completely, and the judgment of the law would make him pay the price. And beyond all this, the business empire belonging to Su Qingli was just beginning to reveal its formidable edge. Shen Hanchuan was released on bail due to insufficient evidence 3 days later. He had nowhere to go. All his properties were seized, his accounts frozen, and even the Maybach he often drove was repossessed by the bank in the chilly late autumn wind. He stood at the entrance of Cloud Peak Club, a venue under Su's technology, where a high-end salon named Rebirth was being held. He had heard that as long as he could see me, as long as he could beg for my forgiveness, his creditors might spare him. I sat on the rooftop terrace of the club, the red oak in the fireplace crackling as it burned. "President Su, Mr. Shen has been waiting downstairs for 3 hours. The snow is falling heavily, and he's dressed lightly," the secretary whispered as a reminder. I took a sip of the warm red wine, watching the swirling snowflakes outside the floor-to-ceiling window. Back then, Shen Hanchuan had also knelt in this first snowfall to propose, and at the time, I thought he was a young man of unyielding pride. Now, it seems he was merely adept at using that cold, aloof facade to win sympathy. "Let him wait another hour," I said calmly, turning my head to look at the man sitting across from me. Hu Jingxi had changed into a dark grey custom-made suit today, appearing much more reserved. Swirling the whiskey in his hand, he smiled with a hint of amusement. "Miss Su, your strategy of leaving an escape route for the besieged is quite brilliant. Shen Hanchuan has now become the industry's pariah, and aside from begging you, he has nowhere else to turn. He does have other options, he just hasn't let go of that hypocritical pride yet." I clinked glasses with Hu Jingxi. "Young Master Hua, I heard you've recently taken an interest in the land Shen left behind. The land is secondary. What I'm more interested in is how Mr. Su plans to expel the personality of this ex-husband next." An hour later, Shen Hanchuan was finally brought into the club by security. When he entered, he was soaked from the snow, his originally cool and aloof face now frozen to a bluish purple, his lips completely devoid of color. Seeing Hu Jingxi sitting beside me, even able to chat and laugh with me so naturally, the jealousy and shame in his eyes were almost impossible to suppress. "Qingli, I have something I want to say to you alone." Shen Hanchuan's voice trembled, carrying a broken plea. "There are no outsiders here, Mr. Shen. I didn't even invite him to sit down. Say whatever you have to say right here. My time is expensive." 3 minutes. Shen Hanchuan glanced at Hu Jingxi, but in the end, he couldn't hold on to his faltering arrogance. In full view of everyone, his knees thudded heavily onto the carpet. "Qingli, I was wrong." He lowered his head, his voice hoarse. "I shouldn't have been deceived by Lin Man, and I shouldn't have touched the Su family's assets. Those debts, those bank notices, I really can't handle them anymore. Please, for the sake of the 3 years I genuinely spent by your side, revoke that industry ban and give me a way out." "A way out." I set down my wine glass and walked over to him. I gently lifted his chin with the tip of my high heel, forcing him to meet the eyes that had once captivated me. "Shen Hanchuan, when you brought Lin Man into my office and trampled my design sketches underfoot, did you ever give me a way out? Do you think I, Su Qingli, am the kind of saint who would forgive everything just because you kneel and cry? I truly regret it. I drove Lin Man away. That child isn't even mine. I hate her to death." Shen Hanchuan stammered in his defense. "You hate her because she deceived you. If you hadn't discovered her lies, you'd probably still be talking to me about true love," I said with disgust, withdrawing my foot. "The love of someone like you is cheaper than the trash on the street. You never loved anyone, you only loved the tool that could sustain your respectable life. Su Qingli, do you have to be so heartless? I am still your husband, after all." He suddenly roared, reaching out to grab the hem of my skirt but was firmly held down by 2 stern-faced security guards. "Husband." Hu Jingxi stood up at this moment, slowly walked over to Shen Hanchuan, and looked down at him. "Shen Hanchuan, Haven't you realized it yet? From the moment you started scheming, in President Su's eyes, you weren't even considered a competitor. Right now, you're just a contract worker in breach of contract, and when a contract worker is fired, no reason is needed. I looked at Shun Hanchuan and told him word by word. Shun Hanchuan, your dignity, your career, your love, I gave them all to you. Since I can give them, I can also take them back. Do you think kneeling here is an act of repentance? No, you're just mourning the wealth and status you've lost. Attorney Ju, see the guest out. I turned around and looked back at the snowy scene outside the window when Shun Hanchuan was forcibly dragged out of the room. His desperate cries echoed through the empty corridor. He probably thought this was the limit. But he didn't know that the real trial, in tomorrow's court, would completely plunge him from the clouds into the abyss. He never entered my world. He was merely a glitch in my world caused by negligence. Now, the glitch has been fixed, and the world has restarted. The imposing stone pillars of the courthouse gate looked particularly grim under the grey winter sky. This is the last time I will appear in the public eye under the title of Mrs. Shun, although we are already divorced in the legal sense. Today marks the final verdict regarding the case involving the transfer of hundreds of millions in assets, embezzlement, and fraud. The public gallery was filled with business tycoons and media with keen instincts. Shun Hanchuan sat in the defendant's seat, looking as though he had aged 10 years in just a few weeks. The expensive suit that once supported his aloof demeanor now hung loosely on his gaunt frame, appearing absurd and pitiful. Lin Man, sitting behind him to the side, wore prison attire, her face ashen. She was jointly indicted for allegedly assisting Shun Hanchuan in transferring assets and facing multiple fraud charges. Regarding the case of the defendant Shun Hanchuan embezzling the Special Research and Development Fund of Su's Technology, the judge's voice echoed solemnly in the courtroom. It has been verified that Shun Hanchuan, taking advantage of his position, transferred a total of 130 million yuan into illegal accounts and attempted to launder the funds through fraudulent trade. His actions constitute the crimes of embezzlement and commercial fraud. I sat in the plaintiff's seat, my back straight and rigid. The lawyer beside me, Mr. Ju, handed me the latest asset assessment report, which clearly showed that Shun Hanchuan had no executable assets left in his name. In fact, he was even burdened with a breach of contract compensation of 200 million yuan owed to the Su family. No, that money was for the company's operations. Su Qingli framed me. Shun Hanchuan suddenly lost control in the courtroom, shouting as he pointed at me, his eyes filled with twisted hatred. She set me up. She's been trying to swallow the Shun family from the very beginning. The defendant, please watch your language, the judge said sternly, striking the gavel heavily. I stood up slowly, my voice calm yet carrying an undeniable force. Your Honor, I have here a recording of a phone conversation between Mr. Shun Hanchuan and Ms. Lin Man during their marriage. The recording clearly documents how the two planned to sell the Su family's patented technology to overseas competitors. Mr. Shun, was your so-called for the company just an excuse to sell your wife's hard work for a good price and run away with your true love? The recording was played in court, Shun Hanchuan's usually cool and refined voice turning dark and venomous in the audio. Once we get this money, we'll go to Switzerland. That foolish woman Su Qingli still thinks I'm working overtime. The entire courtroom erupted in an uproar. Shun Hanchuan's last shred of dignity was completely stripped away. He slumped back into his chair, his eyes vacant. The verdict is as follows. The defendant, Shun Hanchuan, is found guilty of embezzlement and commercial fraud. He is sentenced to 7 years in prison, fined 5 million yuan, and ordered to compensate the plaintiff, Su Qingli, for various losses totaling 240 million yuan. The defendant, Lin Man, is found guilty of fraud and obstruction of justice, and is sentenced to 3 years in prison. With the final crisp sound of the gavel, Lin Man collapsed to the ground, weeping uncontrollably, while Shun Hanchuan stared at me, his lips trembling, unable to utter another word. When I walked out of the courtroom, the snow outside had already stopped. Before being escorted into the police car, Shun Hanchuan, with a sudden burst of strength, broke free from the bailiff and rushed to me. Separated by a guardrail, He looked at me, his voice filled with a deathly plea. Qingli, you've won. I have nothing left now, are you? Satisfied, I stopped in my tracks, looking at this man who once thought he could control my life. Shen Hanchuan, you are mistaken. I elegantly adjusted the coat draped over my shoulders, my tone as calm as if discussing the weather. I never intended to defeat you. You were merely a nail I accidentally stepped on while pursuing higher goals. Removing you was simply to make my path a little smoother. Have you never loved me at all? He asked that cliched question. I let out a light laugh. Leaning close to his ear, 3 years ago, on that blizzard night, I truly thought about growing old with you, but in the 30 minutes you brought Lin Man into my office, you were already dead to me. Shen Hanchuan, the you now doesn't even deserve my hatred. I turned away, not looking at his disheveled state as he was taken into the police car, nor at Lin Man's desperate cries as she clawed at the ground. A black Maybach pulled up precisely in front of me. Hu Jingxi stepped out and opened the car door for me. In his gaze, there was now a trace of genuine reverence. Congratulations, Mr. Su. The plaque of the Shen Group has just been taken down. No, I said as I got into the car, my gaze fixed on the distant Su Technology building, shimmering with golden light. From today on, there is no more Shen Group in this world, only the era of Su Qingli. The wheels crunched over the icy snow on the road, making crisp cracking sounds. Shen Hanchuan, you can grow old slowly behind bars, with your cheap pride and useless regrets. As for me, I'm going to embrace the vast, magnificent sea that was always meant to be mine. The Cloud Banquet, held at the city's highest revolving restaurant, was once the pinnacle of the social circle Shen Hanchuan dreamed of joining. Tonight marks the 30th anniversary celebration of the Su Group, as well as its first official appearance under its new name. The entire facade of the building is covered with a massive light show, with the golden SU logo shimmering in the night sky, symbolizing the complete end of an old era and the arrival of a new era belonging to a powerful female protagonist. I changed into a dark green silk gown, resembling a cedar tree reborn from the ruins. Around my neck was no longer the tears of the deep-sea necklace, but a platinum necklace I designed myself, inspired by the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly. President Su, all of the top 50 global partners have arrived tonight, Lawyer Zhu said as he approached with a glass of wine. He now serves as the chief legal officer of the Su Group. I nodded, my gaze fixed on the massive LED screen in the center of the banquet hall. It was playing the latest global strategy promotional video for Su Technology. Meanwhile, on a public television in an old community on the other side of the city, a legal news report was being broadcast. In the news, Shen Hanchuan, wearing oversized prison uniform, was being escorted to the prison where he would serve his sentence. His once cold and aloof appearance now looked disheveled and pitiful under the high-definition camera lens. It was the most famous moment of his life, yet also the most humiliating at that moment. Hu Jingxi walked over to me and handed me a glass of champagne. Just now in the lounge, I heard an interesting rumor. Hu Jingxi raised an eyebrow. Before Lin Man was imprisoned, she tried to use that so-called pregnancy diagnosis to apply for medical parole, only to be exposed on the spot by the prison doctor. Now, every day inside, she not only has to face heavy labor but also receives special attention from the creditors of the old patrons she once cheated. Miss Su, your psychological tactics are even more ruthless than killing her outright. I calmly clinked my glass with his. I simply let the law and the truth do what they were meant to do. As for Shen Hanchuan, he probably still thinks he can make a comeback after being released, but I've already bought out all the patent fields he could possibly be involved in. For the rest of his life, he'll only be able to work as the most ordinary laborer at the bottom, watching me shine on television. You've truly let go. Hu Jingxi looked at me, a flicker of complexity in his eyes. Let go? No. I've simply moved beyond. I walked toward the podium, the red carpet beneath my feet soft yet firm as I stepped onto the stage. Nearly 1,000 business elites and political dignitaries in the room fell silent, their gazes converging on me like a tide. I scanned the entire hall, not catching a single trace of Mrs. Shen. Now, I am only Su Qingli. 30 years ago, the Su family took root in this city. 3 years ago, I once believed marriage was a safe harbor, only to discover that when the storm hits, the only one who can hold up an umbrella is myself. My voice, amplified by the microphone, clearly reached every corner, even reaching Shin Han-chwon, who was staring blankly at the TV screen at that moment. Many people have asked me whether expelling CEO Shin, reclaiming the company, and leaving him with nothing was an act of revenge. I want to say that revenge is merely about clearing away the trash, while my journey is toward the stars and the sea. The awakening of women has never been about defeating a particular man, but about reclaiming the inherently limitless self. The applause thundered, lasting for a long time amid this atmosphere of utmost luxury and freedom. I looked up at the night sky beyond the floor-to-ceiling window. Shin Han-chwon, you must be watching, right, in that cramped surveillance room, behind those dim iron bars. Look, without you, I not only have the world, but I also possess a freedom I've never known before, and you, in the long years of your sentence, in the regret that follows each day you open your eyes, will slowly come to understand what you lost was not a wife who gave and took as she pleased, but a deity who once wanted to lift you to the peak. The climax of the party arrived as a shower of fireworks exploded outside the window. I raised my head and drained the champagne in my glass. Love is merely an embellishment. The self is the true star. Goodbye, Shin Han-chwon. No, it's never seeing each other again.